What is happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I really hope you guys had a great Christmas, but the holiday season isn't over just yet, and as promised, I have so many more top 10 ranking videos, etc. to give you guys before we head into 2023, and today's video is the worst Transformers of 2022, a list which 9 times out of 10 tends to go down pretty well with you guys, as I'm sure you're all familiar with me being pretty happy and impressed with figures, but I don't tend to roast figures all that much, but when I do, you guys know that they're going to get an absolute ass whooping, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So this was quite difficult to compile, as let's be fair, we've gotten some pretty amazing figures this year, but the figures that are on this list honestly should just be completely wiped, obliterated from existence, as some of them in particular are by far the worst figures I've reviewed over on the channel. So we're just going to kickstart things off, but before we do, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below if you guys agree with the picks I've chosen for this list, and what figures do you think maybe should have made it on this list if I don't mention them. So let's kickstart things off with an official masterpiece figure. That's also another thing worth bearing in mind. This does focus on officially licensed figures from both Hasbro and Takara. I was going to throw in a few third-party figures, but to be honest, besides the Toy Lab Soundwave, I've been pretty impressed with pretty much all of the third-party figures I've reviewed over on the channel. So we're going to talk about the first one, and it is probably one of the more expensive ones, those being the Masterpiece G Trainbots. Now, I was just thoroughly let down with them, and it's both of them, the Trainbot Shoki and Getsui, and it's for a few reasons, but the biggest reason has got to be the price point. These guys are astronomical. I think they go for around about what you would expect from the average Seeker, and when you factor in that they're quite small, mainly made out of clear plastic, I just do not think the price point is there. And to me, the biggest issue I have with them is that they don't actually look like Masterpiece. If you were to have them on the shelf amongst some mainline figures, you would probably think that they were mainline leaders, and in some cases when you compare them to the likes of Astro Train and Blitzwing, especially price point wise, I personally feel as if though they are actually a little worse. So some of the issues I have with them would have to be rubbish engineering, especially when it comes down to Shoki. I mean, that figure has a huge backpack, which for a Masterpiece and one which costs as much as it does, should not be occurring at all. I understand that it's Takara's first official Masterpiece combiner, but Takara have been doing Masterpiece Transformers for decades, and not to mention they help Hasbro out with their mainline combiners, so they definitely know how to engineer things, and we've seen third-party companies come out with their own version of the Trainbots for significantly cheaper, and I'm just going to tell you guys straight, those are so much better. I also don't like the fact that they are kind of heavily reliant on transparent plastic. I mean, don't get me wrong, their train modes look stellar, but it just causes for so many problems. I've had lots of breakages on Getsui. Can't say the same for Shoki. So far that figure is holding up to be pretty decent, but if this is a sign of what's to come for the rest of the Trainbots, I think this MP combiner may go down as being one of the biggest Takara Tomy flops since the MP Bumblebee and Hound. Now we're going to talk about some Hasbro figures, those being two collaborations, the G.I. Joe and Transformers crossovers, HissTank Megatron and the Ore Striker Bumblebee. Damn. So one thing that you're going to be noticing which is occurring on this list would have to be price point, and Megatron's price point was just ridiculous. Here in the UK, I think he retailed for around £80 to £100, which is what you would expect from a Commander class, and it just was not worth it. Not worth it engineering wise, scale wise, plastic quality wise, or enjoyability wise. Megatron was an absolute disaster. A train wreck, literally a train wreck. He had terrible kibble on the back, and I think that is what plagued the vast majority of these G.I. Joe crossovers, was that Hasbro didn't actually incorporate the alt mode pieces into the robot mode. You could essentially, especially in the case of Megatron, split the HissTank components from the body, and you'd have a Megatron figure and a HissTank, because nothing is integral to the transformation. It's all kind of a shell form, it's all just kibble hanging off the back, which makes him super top heavy, makes him ugly, not being able to pose as you would expect. Now, to be fair, Bumblebee was a little better, but that's not saying much. He had that massive roll cage, which just completely restricted any articulation that you'd want to get out of the waist and the knees. Just terrible figures in my opinion, guys. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think the plastic on Megatron was all that great. He kind of reminded me of a squidgy bath toy that you used to play with when you were a toddler, like a rubber duck, or literally a Transformers bath toy. I'm definitely sure they did those way back in the day. I'll be sure to smack an image up on screen if I manage to track one of those down. And Bumblebee is better overall, but I think he should have just been a different character. Now, I get why they chose him for the Ore Striker. Bumblebee is undeniably going to sell more toys when in comparison to the likes of Hound or another character which could have been a little better suited for that type of vehicle mode, but I mean, if you're doing a crossover, come on, do it right. And with rumors that we're going to be seeing more G.I. Joe inspired Transformers crossovers in 2023, I can only hope that they are way better from an engineering perspective when in comparison to these two, as if you take a look at the likes of Gigawatt and Ectotron, they absolutely wipe these G.I. Joe Transformers crossovers off of the face of the planet. And now we're going to talk about some actual mainline figures, and these ones, to be honest, I wasn't too sure that I was going to include them on the list, but they were some of my biggest letdowns of the year, so I thought, why not? And it's the Transformers Legacy, Breakdown, and Wild Rider, two components to the combiner Menasor, which, don't get me wrong, I think Menasor as a combiner is one of the best mainline combiners that we've seen Hasbro put out, but these as individual standalone figures were just absolute dog shit. To me, at least, it felt as if though Hasbro sucked us in with Dragstrip and Motormaster. They were the two Stunticons that were released first of all. They were really good, especially for their deluxe and commander price point, but from there on it was just a hill downwards. I mean, Dead End was decent from the top, but the below the legs were terrible, and then Breakdown and Wild Rider, damn, they were bad. Both of them had terrible official backpacks, some of the worst backpack configurations I've seen on an official mainline Transformer for a very long time. Me personally, just in my own experience, I didn't think Wild Rider was enjoyable. I just felt him to be a little clunky. The joints weren't great. You couldn't really pull off many cool poses. And then when we get to Breakdown, damn, what a massive disappointment he was. He was our last Stunticon, so arguably one of the most anticipated. You know, we've been building up to this for nearly a year, waiting to see how Breakdown, the final component, is going to turn out, and it happened to be a very minor retool and repaint of Wild Rider, one of the most mediocre Stunticons that we got from the set. They didn't even try and give us a faux Lamborghini, and what added super insult to injury to me is that we've seen Hasbro do fake Lamborghinis in the past. We saw it with Sunstreaker, we saw it with the Earthrise or the Kingdom Earth mode Sideswipe, so why they couldn't have done better with this guy is beyond me, and to be honest, I think both of them are a complete waste of plastic as standalone figures, but you need them as they're essentially glorified gap fillers for Menasor. Next up, we have a figure which, to be honest, nearly put me off the Legacy line as a whole. It was the Transformers Legacy Skids. Now, this figure was the first one I actually got for Legacy, and it was just such a massive disappointment. I remember actually reviewing him, and I thought to myself, if this is a sign of what is to come, damn, what a massive downgrade we're in for as far as Legacy goes when in comparison to War for Cybertron. Luckily, Wave 2 and then Legacy Year 2 massively upped its game, but suffice to say, this was bad. So I just didn't think it was a great figure. Started Legacy off on a low note. Bad proportions, really weird forearms. He kind of had this massive upper torso and then these really short, stubby legs, which from a proportion perspective, I just thought looked strange. He had this huge plank that was permanently fixed into the back of the head. It became the almost bonnet section of the vehicle mode. I just thought that was ugly. That really reminded me of some of the lazy engineering we'd get from the Prime Wars trilogy. And the legs, oh my goodness me, the legs were just disgusting from a design perspective. I think they've got to be some of the worst designed legs we've ever seen from a mainline Transformer. They were just super hollow, the transformation was lazy, and overall I just didn't think it was worth the deluxe price point. Granted, we did get Crankcase in Wave 3, which was a heavy retool, and he was a little better, but still not great. And then we got Burnout, which was just a straight up repaint with a new head, and I hear rumours that Crosscut is coming in the next wave of Legacy, and I am not looking forward to reviewing that guy unless the paint scheme is killer. And now we jump into a whole host of figures, so these are 3 figures in total that massively let me down, and they are the Legacy Prime Universe characters. Now, where to start on these ones? I think these are probably the biggest flop we've seen from a Transformers mainline in a very long time. I remember when leaked listings began to surface, and all of us Prime fans were super hyped to see as to what Hasbro would be doing as far as these amazing character designs go. And what did they do? They gave us a fusion between G1 and Prime that, to be honest, didn't actually bear any resemblance to their original amazing character designs. So, to be honest, Bulkhead and Knockout were a little better. I think RC was one of the worst out of the entire Legacy lineup just as a whole, and it's because I think they just wanted to repurpose that mold for so many different characters that if they were to give us a Transformers Prime RC which actually looked like the character, they wouldn't be able to use that mold as many times as they have. I mean, it's been repainted into a figure for Velocitron. I've actually forgotten the name of that, but then they also gave us Flame War, and I swear they retooled it into something else. I honestly don't remember at this point, but I just thought it was a super disrespectful homage to those original amazing Transformers Prime designs. And to add further insult to injury, when you look at the likes of the Cybertron or the Armada Universe characters, and even the new Prime Universe Skyquake and some of those animated characters which have just leaked, all of them are pretty faithful, and you can easily tell who they're supposed to be and what universe they're based upon. But if you were to hand me the grey prototype of Prime Universe RC without her her really cool blue color deco. To be honest guys, I'd be perplexed as to what character that was supposed to be, as it just doesn't really share the essence of that RC in my opinion. And I think the biggest reason why those Prime designs went through such a big change was that Hasbro maybe peaked a little too soon way back in 2011, 2012 when they gave us those superb borderline masterpiece first edition figures. I think that they thought they maybe couldn't outdo themselves, so they gave us these G1 mashups, which sadly just didn't stick the landing. So definitely a massive fail, one of the biggest fails I think we've seen from Legacy, and I don't think I have any of those Prime Universe characters in my display, besides maybe Knockout. I'm looking around the room now, I cannot see Bulkhead, and I definitely cannot see any version of that RC. And then finally we talk about one of the worst set of figures I think Hasbro have ever produced, and we're throwing it all the way back from 1984 until the present day, and it has got to be the Transformers Red series. Damn, this is a series which has been going on for I think 4 years now, and I cannot believe that it's still in development. It is just so terrible. So specifically I'm going to be talking about the Prime Megatron and Optimus Prime. To me, some of the biggest flops we've seen from this line. We're 4 years in and they're still using the same rubbish, rubbery plastic which doesn't feel like any material they use in their other action figure focused lines. I own figures from Black Series, I have Marvel Legends, I have G.I. Joe Classified Series, and all of them feel worlds apart from the absolute trash they give us in Transformers Red. And not to mention, the whole gimmick about these red Transformers is that they're non-transformable. It allows the design team to really nail the robot modes and give us articulation which perhaps they couldn't give us in a transforming figure, and I am just not seeing it at all with this Red series. Some of my transforming figures are more articulated than these non-transforming figures, and I just don't see the appeal of them if they're not going to kind of cater to that audience which wants super articulated non-transforming Transformers. You are literally better off to get the transforming versions, and to be fair, the price difference, honestly, I don't think is all that much. So really rubbery, the joints kind of spring back into place due to how flexy and bendy they are. The Megatron looked like absolute dog shit. It was super grey, super bland. The weapons were just diabolical. It was really, really ugly. Some of the joints are super loose as well, mainly the thigh rotation, meaning that when you just pose it, that joint just gives way and the figure flops to the ground, which is a shame. Articulation is dire, terrible in comparison to what you would expect from a modern action figure from Hasbro. You compare, probably the best Red series figure I would say would be Cheetor. You compare that Cheetor to a G.I. Joe Classified series or a Marvel Legends, and I guarantee you articulation is gonna flop, because they just do not stack up compared to other action figures, and I just really don't get what the appeal of that would be. And the designs also, I'm not too sure whether it's just myself, but I feel as if though some of them are a little stylized, and I just don't get why. I mean, if you look at Cheetor, he looks a little different. He actually looks more like Dinobot, in my opinion, to how he originally appeared in the 90s series. So why are they doing that? I just don't know. But definitely the Red series was the biggest disappointment of this year. Gotta give it to the Prime characters for being some of the worst mainline Transformers we've ever seen. Legacy Skids, oh, really don't like that mold, I'm sorry guys. Breakdown and Wild Rider, definitely the biggest tanks as far as the Stunticons went. The G.I. Joe crossovers, I think, have got to be some of the worst crossovers we've seen. I mean, when you compare to the amazingness that we saw in 2020 with the Gigawatt, and then 2019 with the Ectotron, just absolutely pales in comparison. And as far as the Masterpiece Trainbots go, I understand they're a combiner, but some of the worst Masterpiece figures I've ever picked up. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with my picks? Do you think that I've been perhaps slightly too harsh on some of them? And are there any figures which I've failed to mention on this list that you guys think should have definitely made it onto it? Be sure to sound off down in the comment section below, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.